How is everybody today? Happy Wednesday. Or no, Tuesday. It's Tuesday, you guys. Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. So, I do have some updates about shipping. Before we talk about that, I'm going to talk about something else for just a minute so that we give everybody a chance to get in that wants to hear the shipping updates. So, um, Whatnot has introduced a new program that they beta tested in some other countries. They originally called it GEMS. It has been renamed to Points. Whatnot Points. They are slowly rolling it out. So you may hear people say, "What was that?" or something and you didn't see it, and it's because your account hasn't been updated. And I will say, make sure that you continually check daily to make sure your app is updated so you see all the latest updates, because they are rolling out quite a few updates simultaneously. Good morning, farmer's daughter. So make sure your app is always up to date. And, if you don't have your App Store or Android set for automatic updates, go in and make sure that you update it. So I don't know a whole lot about it other than it's a program that allows people to accumulate points towards doing certain things that are just kind of fun, like new emojis, new things in chat that show up. And let me find the. Sorry, I was looking up other stuff for a minute, so I didn't get it pulled up. So let me go to the. All right, so it still says on here Australia, Canada, US. It's been renamed to points. Eligibility, it's open to all buyers. It's a buyer program. It's something that enhances their buyer experience, and you earn points that by doing certain things like sharing shows, giving hearts, staying in a certain show for a certain amount of time. Yeah, that's what I know about it. And then you can like use your points to buy certain like things that you do. So it's not like, I don't think it's like, there's no monetary exchange. So you don't pay to participate and you don't get monetary rewards. There's no cash value. It's just the rewards that you can accumulate to then do certain things in people's shows. Let me see if it actually outlines what you can do. If you want to see the article, it's under the title Whatnot Points Rewards Program. So that's what it looks like. To give hearts, you just tap your screen. So you just double tap on the screen and it gives hearts like that. So see how people are creating hearts right now? So just tap anywhere on your screen that's not like some other kind of command and it will do the hearts. Yep. Um, Let me see if it specifies what the actual rewards are for this. Yeah, it really doesn't say a whole lot in here. Um, and it doesn't tell me where you will be able to see it. So let's see. You redeem your points in the app for coupons, digital effects. For example, reactions to send during live shows. Um, Once the points are redeemed, you access them in the rewards tab of the points rewards program hub in the app. So I guess I can't really and tell who has it. Someone tell me if you have it. Because you have it. Okay. So do you have some new icon on your screen? So quite a few of you do. So they're just slowly rolling it out. I don't know how they're determining who gets it and who doesn't yet. It's just getting slowly rolled out. I think it's probably based on servers. So, like, if you're in certain regions by servers. So it shows up as a little timer in the show top left. Okay. Oh, and it says watch to earn. Okay. So, yeah, it rewards you for staying in a show for longer periods of time, and it rewards you for doing certain things. And then it tells you when you click that the things that you can do. Okay. So, that's what I know about it. So if you want to read about it, this article again is not super descriptive, but Whatnot Points Rewards Program. And it is live. It's just getting rolled out slowly to everybody. So it was already beta tested in the UK, Australia, and Canada. I kind of think it's a little bit, I'm a little bit, think it's a little bit unfair. They almost always beta test things in the foreign countries because I think because it's such a smaller audience, they like to beta test things with the smaller groups. So we often get second, I mean, you know, but maybe the bugs get worked out in the other countries first, and maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so if you're in another country, sorry, I'm not dissing on you. I'm just saying, yeah. One of the things you can get with your coins is a banner that pops up when you buy an item instead of just your picture. Oh, okay. What do you guys think about that? I don't know. I don't know that I want my purchases being like super announced. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that pass. Kind of silly. All right. So once it's all rolled out, please give us your feedback, um, so that we can pass that on to Whatnot. If you love it, if you don't love it, what you like about it, what you hate about it, so that we can pass on the feedback to see if it's something that truly, maybe buyers are going to love it. I don't know. Because that's who it was for. It wasn't really for the sellers purposes. It's for the buyers, and as an incentive for buyers to stay in your shows. That's kind of where they were hoping it would, reward your buyers. So your points and challenges both say beta. Oh, okay. So obviously they're still testing it out. Okay. So let's talk shipping. Um, I did get some answers to some very specific questions. And the first one, and I did not, I was going to print these out. And then I thought, no, I'm not going to print them yet because this is in so much flux. But I did get these answers directly from Whatnot employees. So, um, yeah, that's true, Callie, because it's set up, like gaming. And so those perks are kind of like a little game to people. Yeah. Um, So I did not put these in print yet because I felt like I don't want people to be like hardcore. This is it, and then find out they changed something. So listen carefully, and I will put this in writing more when I feel like it's more finalized. All right. The first question that was asked is, will we still get the 5 free shipping adjustments? The answer to that was yes. There will be no changes to the adjustments logic. Okay, so we still get our 5, free adjustments per week to use for oopsies when we screw up on the shipping. Okay, so that's good. That's awesome. All right. The next question is, are we going to still be able to have a buyer pays max to get the reduced shipping banner? And for those of you joining late, we are talking shipping. I'll repeat this again, but if you missed anything, you can rewatch on my YouTube account. So just go to YouTube and rewatch this show. It's Draz on Whatnot. It's in the show notes. Okay, so question number two was, will sellers be able to enter a buyer pays max and have the reduced shipping banner? The answer to that was yes. And it says the threshold will now be tentatively 720. So instead of 921 being the threshold for what point you got reduced shipping banner, it's going to be 720 because that is the new like limit for when someone's shipping maxes out at the 5 pound thing. So I think it's awesome we still can do buyer pays max and get reduced shipping, but that new threshold, I feel like because we don't have a flat rate anymore, it forces us to have to decide whether or not we can afford to give people free shipping over the 720 threshold. Because before it wasn't necessarily, I mean, it was free shipping to them, but with flat rate, in most cases, it was also free shipping to us as sellers. That will no longer be the case because if we put in a 720 buyer pays 720 max, anything over $7.20 is going to be us paying it. Right, because 720 is the 5 pound rate. So you're, you're going to have to decide if you can afford to pay for people's shipping if they buy more than 5 pounds, or you're going to have to limit by how you sell what people can buy in your shows, which is kind of weird and awkward to do as far as I can make my brain process. Um, And as far as I'm concerned, I think you're probably going to want to have all shipments unbundle at a 5 pound mark because if you look at the commercial rates, which is what it will default to if they buy more than 5 pounds and you haven't forced it to unbundle, then the rates go to, let me pull that up again. The rates start going to the commercial rates, which are then based on that zone. So here's the commercial rate chart for this is just right off the Postal Service website. And you get to this by clicking the link in this What's Changing article, the shipping article. There is a link in this article that tells you that heavier packages, anything that's calculated above 5 pounds, will be the USPS commercial rate. So when you click that, it brings you to this chart. So if they buy 6 pounds worth, and they're in zone 1, it's 914. And if you come over to zone 9, which you have no control over where someone lives that's buying from you, look at the charge for 6 pounds, $19.15. So to me, and this is why it makes sense that they put a verbiage in here that says, use custom shipping profiles and bundle limits to help keep shipments at or below 5 pounds when possible. Does that make sense? So if you bundle when it's over, if you unbundle when it's over 5 pounds in your shipping settings, then it will, then it will do it before. That's what it's saying is do that before you do your show. so that your settings are set up with custom profiles so that once they buy, up to that 5 pound, it unbundles and starts creating a new order for that person, calculating it at the ground advantage rates that Whatnot has for 1 to 5 pounds. So that the most, if they bought 10 pounds of items, the most they're going to pay is 14.40, if that base rate is 7.20. Okay. So, yes, I think so, Fabric Revival, that you're going, depending on how you have it set up, every listing is going to need to be a custom shipping profile so that it feeds to a maximum and unbundles at 5 pounds. That's what they're encouraging you to do in this verbiage. And it says weigh everything to understand how many of your items are going to fit in a 5 pound shipment. So, what my brain has been doing is trying to figure out, do I need to have, I mean, I honestly was in my brain going, okay, so I need, you know, um, a listing and a profile for every ounce. And then it incrementally tells. So you have a custom profile that says, okay, this custom item is 1 ounce and it allows up to 74 more ounces. Because 80 ounces is 5 pounds. Okay. 80 ounces is 5 pounds. And I think you're going to want to go by ounces, obviously, because we have items that are under a pound that we sell, right? So then you have a custom profile that says, okay, this item is a, let's go by 5. This item is a 5 ounce item, and you're going to allow up to 75 ounces per package because you want to give room for your packaging weight, because your packaging weight still has to fit within that 5 pounds. So your items plus the weight of the package. So if you're using a poly mailer, weigh your poly mailers. If you're using boxes, you're going to have even more lenience in your weight. If you're selling over 80 ounces of fabric, I can pay the unbundle amount. Um, what do you mean? So like if you use the max, if you go ahead and put in the buyer pays max 720 so that you can get the reduced shipping banner, the seller is going to pay the overage. So you're going to have to pay anything that they buy over that 80 ounces if you choose to do that. Can you unbundle after the show? Well, yes, but depending on how you set up, it already charges based on how you have it set up. So just like right now, if you have a buyer pays max 921 put in there, even if you're using flat rate, if they buy more than will fit in a large flat rate box, what were you having to do? You were having to unbundle it and either put it in multiple flat rate boxes or put it in um, a different type of box and send it ground advantage. Okay. And this takes effect, yes, not before August 1st is what the verbiage is. So plan on August 1st, but it may be a little bit later if they don't have it all set up yet. Um, okay. So those are the answers to the first two questions. Question number one, will we still get our 5 free adjustments? The answer is yes. Question number two, will we still be able to offer the reduced shipping and get the reduced shipping banner? The answer is yes, but the new threshold is 720. So if you want that reduced shipping banner, you have to be willing to put in buyer pays max 720 or less. You can do less. It just has to be that or less. And that threshold, he said, is still tentative. That's what they think it's going to be. Um, yeah. Oh, thank you, creative. So we'll see if I still have it after after next month. We'll see if any of us have it. Um, so yeah, I don't know yet, you guys. I don't know yet what I'm gonna do. That's the honest truth because I'm still trying to. Just now, just a few days ago, got the answers to these questions, and yeah, I mean, honestly, I kind of get a little bit overwhelmed with it and almost kind of think, and I have to wrap my brain around this too, but I almost think it would be easier to just do that. Well, honestly, either do free shipping or the buyer pays max 720 and then just start seeing how it works, but also really tightly curating my shows so that I limit, and I hate to do this because I don't want to limit what people can buy, but at the same time, yes, we still get the 5 free adjustments, Joan. I just stated that. So we do still get the 5 free adjustments. Um, but that's gonna, if you have, a threshold of 720 and you have just, 5 customers who buy over 5 pounds, which that happens pretty regularly in fabric, right? Because 5 pounds is about, if you go by, if let's say that you're going by 6 ounces for every yard of fabric, um, so, and then you've got about 75 ounces because you've got to have room for packaging. So let's say 75 divided by 6, that limits people to about 12 and a half yards. We just got a raid from Zeta Zeus. Thank you so much for the raid. Appreciate that. Everyone give them a follow. Tell us what you sell and when your next show is. On the tier program, can you do a buy so much, get free shipping? Well, the that's what the 720 max would do, is that it would max out at 5 pounds and then they would get free shipping if you're willing to offer that. Um, so, oh, on that points program, I don't know if that's what you're asking. Okay, so Meryl King asks, so if I use a half yard setting and a fat quarter setting during a show, will using both count towards the 5 pound max if I've set each one to max out at 5 pounds? Yes. So, but you just have to carefully make sure you set that custom profile up so that no matter whether they buy a fat quarter and a yard, both of those are counting towards that 5 pound max. And you've got to still keep into account your packaging weight. So if you're using boxes, make sure you know what the box is going to weigh and include that in the weight of, each item. Or if you're going to use poly mailers, same thing. Okay. Um, Julie says, I'm considering being done for the most part and considering only selling kits to make shipping easier. Yeah, that's, you're going to have to try things out and see what's going to work for you. I mean, and don't feel like, this is a pick on smaller sellers. I mean, um this is going to be a huge change across the board because the big volume shippers, um who were just kind of flying by the seat of their pants and selling everything at one weight, that's not going to work anymore because they're going to be paying out the wazoo if they aren't narrowing down weights. And because if they still want to offer free shipping or reduced shipping, it's going to really kick them in the butt. And then the other thing is that we're going to get charged back to our accounts those boo-boos, where if you send something underweight, you're going to start getting charged for that. So they can no longer just sell everything at one weight and just print shipping labels. Yeah. They're getting heavy fines, setting heavy fines because they're just processing so much mail. Their volume is insanity, and they just can't do it anymore. They have to have people be more responsible and not cheat, because really that's what people are doing, is cheating. Because if you go into the post office with a package, they weigh it and everything's set and you pay the set price, right? They're allowing everybody to claim that things weigh certain things and print labels. And a lot of it was just going through, but they were tracking it. Trust me, they were tracking it. They just weren't always charging it back. We don't know yet if they're going to allow other carriers. As of right now, the answer to that is no. But they always say when we ask that they're investigating it. They have already done betas with UPS in the past, but they haven't rolled it out for some reason. So, yeah. Is this creating more work for the post office? I would say it's creating less work for the post office because they are we're no longer going to do flat rate. So we don't get the free boxes, and we're responsible to make sure that package is accurate when we send it. And people are incentivized by not wanting to get charged back for underweight packages. So I think it's going to be a lot less work for them because that's what they're trying to do, I think, you know. And it definitely is going to weed out sellers who don't want to be responsible and accountable to make sure their packaging is accurately weighed and sent out accurately, right? Yes, it is creating more work for us because we have to weigh everything. Yeah. But I think you're going to have to. I mean, it will. As we get more and more used to a new system, any change creates more time. But, as you get used to it and figure out what's going to work for you, it will, I think you'll figure it out. Um, Let me just make sure if I haven't missed any important questions here. So I'm just going to look back through chat for just a second on the questions. So yeah, a lot of you are asking about the unbundling. You're going to want to do everything before you ever have the show. Your settings need to be set so that it does what you want it to do before the show so that, you aren't having to unbundle and change it because really you've already been charged. Whatever your shipping settings are when you have a show, that's how they calculate the shipping. It's already been done. It's already charged your buyer and it's already charged you. And so on the back end, if you're having to do a bunch of things and unbundling and all this stuff, then you didn't have it set up right in the first place. Um, And yes, it is supposed to be better for the buyers, and ultimately it is. Ultimately it is better for buyers because instead of 921, they're now getting 720 for the first 5 pounds. And if we want to offer the reduced, shipping, then the amount most they're going to pay is 720. That's a lot. That's $2 cheaper than what it was before, right? I mean, and statistically, I think most buyers buy less than 5 pounds in any given show. Um, it's just that, if you sell heavier items, you sell bulkier items, or you allow people by how you do your shows to buy, lots and lots of product in any given show, then yeah, that's going to be, you're going to have to decide, am I going to cover that shipping Or am I not going to offer reduced shipping and allow it to create separate 5 pound orders? Or just leave it at the default of, buyer pays all. And once they hit 5 pounds, it starts going to Ground Advantage. I wouldn't advise that because, like I said, you look at those rates, and once you hit commercial pricing, which by the way has gone up significantly, these are the new rates. Um, a 5 pound, just the base rate for a 5 pound package in zone one, meaning someone that lives close to you, is $8.98. And 5 pounds for someone who lives the furthest away from you in zone nine is 17.77. That people just aren't going to want to pay that, right? So the best scenario is having it unbundle every 5 pounds. And that's what it says in the article, is that they recommend that you do that. Yeah, as a buyer, every 5 pounds, 720 is still very reasonable. It's very reasonable. So, you're going to want to probably do that. Okay. 5 pounds is about 12 and a half to 15 yards, depending on how because you also have to account for the packaging weight. So to be safe, you probably want to stick with about 12 and a half yards of fabric, because an average yard of fabric is somewhere between 5 and 6 ounces. So if you calculate it at 6 ounces to be safe, um, most yards of fabric are right around 5. Some are, lighter weight craft weight fabrics are around 4.5. So yeah, right in that range. So, just, figure out where you're at. Maybe take a bunch of different brands. Um, Julie from Fabric and Treasures was telling me that she has a chart she made that lists all the brands of fabric, all the major brands of fabric, and what a yard of fabric weighs. I'll have to see if she'll share that with us, because she, went through and just weighed a yard of fabric from all the different brands and wrote it down. Because there is a variance depending on the quality of the cotton. And some brands use a little bit thicker, like a Robert Kaufman. Their cotton is a little bit heavier. Um, but like an art gallery yard is a lot less weight because they use that cotton lawn type cotton, and it's, a lot lighter weight. So it just depends on the brand, but I would say most yards of fabric fall in the 4 to 6 ounce, you know, so you can kind of count on that. Um, okay, so yeah, then the next question that was asked, let me pull this back up here, was I asked about if the package is over 5 pounds and defaults to a commercial rate, if you didn't specify for it to unbundle. I was asking about the dimensions and stuff. So, they didn't really answer this in a way that it made a whole bunch of sense, but you need to look at this, where that link takes you to this, and you need to pay really close attention to all of these details on the side that talk about girth, because Ground Advantage is subject to these rules. And there are fees for anything that exceeds 1 cubic foot, which is still that 12 by 12 by 12, 1728 cubic inches, that we're still going to be held to that. And the other thing about that is that they have now specified that instead of rounding down, they are rounding up. They used to round down to the closest um, like cubic inch. Now they're rounding up. So whatever a box says on the outside as the measurement sometimes is actually the inside. So make sure that you measure the outside of your box and make sure it fits within that or your package. And then you've got a 22-inch max where your package, any side of your package, the height, the length, or the depth of that package cannot exceed 22 inches before they start adding fees. So 22 up to 30 inches, it adds $4.50. Now, it's not going to know that the way that you can manipulate your shipping settings. But what's going to happen is that you're going to be forced to put in the dimensions now because you're using Ground Advantage. And if you put in a dimension longer than 22 inches, it's going to automatically charge you as the seller $4.50. The customer didn't pay that because that's not something that's in there unless you had put a custom shipping profile in there stating the size of the box was going to be bigger, and then they know that they're going to see a shipping charge that includes that excess length fee. And then it says 30 inches, anything over 30 inches is 10 extra bucks. So what does that say to you? That says don't sell big crap on Whatnot. That's what it says to me. You know, I mean, there's some sellers who in vintage that were selling like these big printer trays and big artwork, and they may still do that, but they're going to have these custom shipping profiles in there and customers that are willing to pay the extra um size, right? And if you've noticed, I mean, I don't spend tons of time in vintage shows because I just don't buy it. I love to watch them, but I don't like to get tempted to buy crap I don't need. So, but like if you go into vintage shows, how many of you would say that the vintage sellers have almost all gone to smaller items? Even before this update, they were already, most of them are selling smaller items because they were taking an advantage of flat rate and because of this kind of stuff. It already was a deal that, you already had limitations on size before this update. So, most people just don't sell big items on Whatnot because of the shipping. And I would say that's true on other platforms as well, just because it's hard to get customers who are willing to pay the extra cost that it is to do larger things. Now, some other platforms have other shipping carrier options that do have some decent rates for larger items. Um, so hopefully we'll get that eventually. Well, it was because Never Miss, it was because those big sellers who were selling them were willing to pay the extra shipping because they sell in such high volume and get such good when they run their items, they were getting such good pricing bids, high bids, that they could afford to cover it. And they may still have to, you know. A lot of those bigger sellers are maybe going to just go to a free shipping, just flat out, everything's free shipping because, and then they'll just raise some of their pricing or do what they can with their dollar starts to still get high bids. And I mean, let's face it, if they do a free shipping model, people are still going to come to their shows. And that's even more of an incentive to go to their shows because you're not going to have to pay shipping, right? So I would guess there's going to be a lot of big sellers who will just do free shipping or do the 720 max and pay anything over that. So yeah. I can't imagine making enough to cover all the shipping myself. Yeah, trust me, a lot of them can. So yeah. I just wish the customer profiles allowed you to set the weight at 5 pounds versus a fixed weight each piece. Let's see, the custom, oh, the custom shipping profiles allowed you to set the weight at 5 pounds versus a fixed weight for each piece. Well, it lets you max it out, right? Because if you put in a custom shipping profile, let me just go in there and look at that again. So I'm going to Seller Hub, shipments, shipping profiles, create a shipping profile. Okay, so let's say that I have a shipping profile that I call 1 yard fabric, quilting fabric, or quilting cotton. Let's say I call it that. All right, and I put in that it is going to weigh 6 ounces. And you need to change it to ounce. And then your bundling options are either number of items or set a fixed weight for additional items. So incremental weight, I can put 75 ounces. So if I put, okay, so applies to each item that may be packaged together. Oh, incremental weight is, so incremental weight is just the, let's see, recommend, okay, applies to each item that may be packaged together with the first item. Is that a max out or is it a, oh, wait. Yeah, that only, so if I say I only want, how does that work? You read it as each piece. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking it is too. Those of you that are doing that with jewelry, is that how it works? Because I saw some jewelry sellers doing it by grams. So they would say the first item is, this weight, and then it allows set a fixed weight applies to each item. Yeah, so I think you're then saying, so I think you would have to do both. Okay, so then if you say incremental weight of 5, and then max number of items is going to be, so this is my, if I'm doing this as a 1 yard listing. So max number of items in one box would be 12 items at 5 ounces each. So then if I do, yeah, see, I don't know how this is going to work. Yeah, I think we need a more, we need also to be able to say a max weight for the package if you're allowing additional items, right? Yes, you are going to have to go back through all your listings and redo them. You're not going to have to redo your shipping profile except for deciding the max weight you want to use, if you want to use a max weight. But yes, you're going to have to redo your listings with a different, if you're going to use these custom profiles. But yeah, I don't see how this, how you can make this. So if I put If I put a max of 12 in one box, but I have this on my 1 yard listing, that's only going to apply to the listings that I put 1 yard. And so if they buy that would force me to only sell 1 yard increments in a show. If I try to sell different sizes, then can you set a custom ship so that only one type of item can be shipped in that box, even though you are selling other items in the show? Patterns do not fall under media rate. No, it has to be a bound book. So it has to be a book with a binding to fall under media. So, well, book with binding or CDs, DVDs, those also fall under media. But yeah, as far as books, it has to be a book with a binding. So if you have quilting books, those can be under media rate. But with books, the problem is that the media rate is only good up to a certain weight, and then flat rate was cheaper. And now media rate is actually going to be more expensive once they hit a certain weight because um I don't know, I don't have the media rate chart up here, but let me see if I can find it. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. Staple books is, I think it's considered a bound book if it's stapled, but um, not like pamphlets that don't have any binding. That wouldn't count. I don't know if I think magazines count as media. Yeah, you do have to make sure it fits because postmasters inspect those. That's like a red flag. Yeah. So be careful. And media rate, you're not allowed to send anything else in the package. No card, no extra gift, no anything. It has to be just the books or just the DVDs or just the CDs. Um, yeah, they don't even technically want you to send a packing slip that has a note written on it because then they consider that that you're getting away with sending a letter or something. Yeah. When someone buys auctions and something from the store, they are going to fall in the same max shipping. Yes. Just like it does now. That's not going to be any different. So if you offer items for sale in your auction and you also are allowing them to buy out of the buy it now, it's all within that max shipping in the show. So you're going to have to really curate that too. So you aren't going to want to have a bunch of stuff in your buy it now if you don't want them to get over that 5 pounds too quickly. So it's going to be up to you. You're going to have to decide, are you going to be able to offer max shipping at 720 and have them still get the reduced shipping banner and you still get the reduced shipping banner, or are you going to, just have it set to unbundle at 5 pounds, but they pay all the shipping if they buy more than 5 pounds? Um, yeah, you're just going to have to decide. So if we set increment at 3 ounces, will that cover all fabric 3 ounces and up to 5 pounds? I'm just trying to figure out where it lets you specify the max weight because it's saying, I think you're going to have to specify not only the incremental weight, but the number of items for it to max out. That's what the clothing people have been doing is they've been doing max number of items. But then that doesn't allow us to have a different size that we sell. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go through and figure this out because, or they need to add another setting in the shipping profiles that allow us to specify the max weight a package can be instead of the max number of items and the incremental weight. Because right now I don't see that it's going to max out. Yeah, you can't do both. Well, you can do both at the same time. I have it on here turned on. So right now, this is what I have in here. So let me see it, make sure. So right now I have 1 yard quilting cotton is my name of my profile. Ounces is what I put in. And then I'm saying incremental weight. I'm just going to leave the 12 by 12 by 12 default in there, because unless you're going to get specific packaging boxes that you know are exactly a certain dimension that you're going to use, it's safer just to probably leave the 12 by 12 by 12 in there and say that you're not going to use packaging that will go over those dimensions, but it allows you the flexibility to decide whether you're going to box it or poly mailer it. And then I'm putting 5 ounce and see how it's ounce. You have to change that from pounds to ounces. And then I'm saying 5 incremental ounces up to 12 items per box. If I publish this, I now have a custom shipping profile. Where did it put it? Let's see. It just puts it at the bottom. So I now have a custom shipping profile called 1 yard quilting cotton. And it's set for 6 ounce item, 5 ounces additional incremental weight up to 12 items per box. That's what it's saying. So I'm picturing that as they buy in a show, if this shipping setting is on a listing, then it will allow them to buy 12 of those before it maxes out. But then this doesn't really make sense because these are 6 ounces instead of 5. So I probably need to use incremental weight of 6. Let me think. Because then it's like every 6 ounce item up to 12 items, and then it's going to unbundle the, that shipment. But my problem is that if they buy, if I'm allowing people to buy different sizes of fabric in my show, yeah, it would be calculating it differently for every size, so it doesn't make sense. Yeah. Well, the incremental weight it says applies to each item that may be packaged together with the first item. So if they buy 1 yard of fabric at 6 ounces, then and you have an incremental weight in there of 6 more ounces, it allows them to incrementally have 6 ounce more up to, and then I said 12 items per box. So yeah, and I don't know, I'm tempted to. All right, before we go on, so it only adds items that are 6 ounces. Yeah. If I put that incremental weight at that. But that's why I'm wondering if I put my incremental weight lower, the problem is then you're going to end up with a box that weighs more than 5, or a package that weighs more than 5 pounds. So I don't think these custom shipping profiles are going to work to max things out at 5 pounds. So it doesn't make sense to me either. So I'm going to have to kind of think this through and ask some more questions about it. Is there anyone in here that has used custom shipping profiles a lot? You were putting 3 ounces to cover 3 to 6 ounces. Because I know there's some clothing sellers and some jewelry sellers that were using it, um, because they sold well, the clothing sellers were using it for max number of items, but they weren't I don't know that they were using weight. But I know the jewelry sellers were using weight in grams to try and keep the thing low. Um, yeah. Let's see what that is a good starting price. Let's see what did Truly say. Let me see. Trying to learn so you start. Yeah, I agree. Definitely start, if you're not able to sell at a volume to offset and use reduced shipping, then you dang well better be using your starting bids at the price you can afford it to sell it at because it's going to kill you on the back end otherwise. So it doesn't have a max weight. I think it is assuming 5 pounds. Well, I think so too, but and the new shipping setting is going to look like so when they take flat rate out, your only option in 1 to 5 pound will be there'll still be a priority option. Um, if you want to, because like they need to have that for like the bougie high end, high dollar items that people might buy, like, designer handbags or something. People may still want to offer priority shipping. So when the flat rate goes away, it'll have 1 to 5 pounds, either priority or ground advantage. Flat rate will be gone. And then it will have 5 pounds and over. And the only options again will be priority and ground advantage. So, it just depends on whether you have it set to unbundle. But I don't see how it automatically is going to unbundle at 5 pounds in here because you're just saying incremental weight, but it doesn't say maxing it out. Whereas, how is it going to know to max it unless you put a number of items and an incremental weight? Then it will max out. But it's maxing out only based on number of items because the incremental weight doesn't say anything other than incrementally add up to this weight. You still need to put a number of items so that it knows at what point number of items to max it out, right? Am I right? What do you guys think? Yeah, I agree. I wish there was a button you could just say max it out at 5 pounds. So I'm going to bring that up because if we don't have the ability to just tell it to max out at 5 pounds, um, then how can we control that? Because the smart bundling and whatnot, if you were doing ground advantage before, if you know, I mean, if you were doing priority ground advantage, if you were doing priority in 1 to 5 pounds and then ground advantage 5 and over, it did automatically unbundle at the 5 pound mark and either start bundling them into ground advantage, or it started a new package at ground advantage under one. And it just depended on how much they bought and what you had the weights at as to far as how it calculated it. But it did automatically unbundle at the 5 pound mark and start doing something until they hit another threshold of weight. And then maybe it would bundle them back together under ground advantage because that ended up being cheaper. So that's what the system did before, but that was just their default smart bundling supposedly, right? Which I always felt like wasn't all that smart, but it could only go based on what you put in there. So, and if everyone was just using those range weights, how smart was it? You know? I'm thinking current setting wise with a polymiller of 14 by 22, 6 ounce increment, 12 items max. Will that keep it at 5 pounds? I think so. I think so. But the problem is, how do we sell different, does that force us to have to, for people to get their value, does that force us to have to always sell, everything that we sell at a certain, in other words, if I'm selling fat quarters, I have to do 4 at a time, everything the equivalent of, or you do only small cuts, or you know what I'm saying here. And most people, um, yeah, how do fat quarters fit in? That's what I'm saying. So I'm thinking, you might have to sell bundles of fat quarters 4 at a time, or 2 half yards or a yard if you're going to use just one custom profile. And that kind of forces us to have to do it a certain way if we want to get this. Yeah. And then bin items, I don't know, because then maybe your bin items are only, the same thing. You're selling everything at the same weight, because that's the only way you can control, um, in my opinion, that's the only way you're going to be able to control the weight, unless they give us some more options on these custom shipping profiles. So I'm going to bring that up, because if we don't have more options, to specify a max weight on these shipping profiles, instead of forcing us to do number of items, I would rather have a profile that just says, um, max 5 pounds, and then every item they buy, once they hit 5 pounds, it just unbundles to a new package. And that we can use that same custom profile on every item. Yeah. So I'm going to bring that up. That's my next question is, that we need to be able to have more settings on those custom profiles so that we can control up front how it unbundles things. All right, so let me write this down. Um, Max weight of package. Because if you guys agree with me, I don't see any way to set the max weight of a package on these custom shipping profiles without doing a weight and a max number of items. Right? Does everyone agree with me on that? Okay. So we need a setting to be able to specify the max weight of the package in total so that it will unbundle for us. Okay. All right. That answered that. Okay. And then let me just look again at in my other questions on here. Let's see. That's pretty much what we asked, were those things. And I asked about the package sizes, and you have to go by the sizes that it specifies on that, um your paper junk journal punches. Yeah. um you're going to have to go by this information for package size that's on this Ground Advantage chart. All of this over here is what you need to go on for size of package. So really the limit is, you're still limited to that 1 cubic foot, 1,728 cubic inches, 12 by 12 by 12 is the max package size. And when you go over that, you're going to start getting fees. The base fee is $3, and then anything over 22 inches is $4.50. Anything over 30 inches on any side of the package is $10. Anything over 2 cubic foot, which is 3,456 cubic inches is $21. And then it says parcels that contain any of the following characteristics: cylindrical tubes or rolls, cans, wooden or metal boxes, 24 ounces of liquid. Anyway, read through all of that. It's an additional charge. So you've got to make sure, yeah, you shouldn't definitely not be selling a bookcase of whatnot. Sell it on Facebook Marketplace or something. Yeah. Yard sale, whatever. Um, so yeah, never miss. And all of you guys that sell craft stuff, well, like I was thinking about um Kristen Swain, how she does her shows, and she was just using the mediums side load boxes and just stuffing them full. That's not going to work anymore. You're going to have to figure out something else, because now the size of the package and the weight of the package both are an issue. So we're going to have to figure out a whole new way to do all of this. Yeah. Yep. So I don't really feel like we still have good solutions here for how to do this. And here's what I'm feeling like. I'm feeling like, yes, is it great for buyers? And is that a positive thing for them to get a better rate? Great. Um, Well, you can leave it as that dimension, but when you on the back end, it's going to force you to put in dimensions, and you still have to make sure that your total dimensions are less than the 12 by 12 by 12, which equals 1,728 cubic inches. Um, so it still has to be a package smaller than that. And the post office is rounding up, not down. So make sure the outside dimensions of any package that you use, they're going to round up. So you've got to round up. So make sure you're. How peeved would buyers be to just pay for all shipping costs? So pumpkin, I think if you just put buyer pays all, ground advantage, they're going to be pretty peeved once it hits that 5 pound, and they want to continue to buy more, because here's the rates. Because it defaults then to the custom, or I'm sorry, it defaults to the commercial pricing. Anything over 5 pounds is commercial pricing. And we were looking at this. So here's the 5 pound rate for commercial pricing, and Whatnot is going to give us the better deal on let me see if I can highlight this with something. Whatnot's going to give us the better deal on this up to 5 pounds, right? Because if you look at the rates on there, 5 pounds is $8.98 for the closest zone for commercial. So if you go into the post office and you have a commercial account, or you're printing out commercial accounts like on a Shopify or something, 5 pounds is $8.98. But you come over here, if they live far away from you, look at the charge, $17.77. So that's a really good rate for our buyers to get 5 pounds of items for less than the lowest zone rate for commercial rates, right? But once you hit 6 pounds, if you let it default to these rates, look at what the charge is going to be. So 6 pounds, 914, 920, 959, 10. But look what it is over here. And you have no control. If someone buys from I live in Utah. If someone from New Jersey buys something from me, this is going to be the zone that they're in. It's going to charge them $19.15 for these 6 pounds of items. So that's why, again, that's why they're saying whenever possible, force it to unbundle at 5 pounds so that they never pay more than the 720 for every 5 pounds of items. Yeah, and just don't sell heavy stuff because it's not worth it. Okay, so those of us who sell fabric, um, 80 ounces, 5 pounds is 80 ounces. And that's somewhere between, including packaging weight, that's about 12 and a half yards up to about 15 yards of fabric. That's a lot of fabric still that people can get for $7.20. And 20 cents. And typically in a show, how many people buy more than 15 yards of fabric? Not very many, right? So, I think for the most part, for the buyers, this is a really good thing, because most people buy, you know, 3 to 5 yards of fabric maybe in a show. You do have the outliers. I have customers who buy 15 pounds of fabric in every show, but a lot of those are, a couple of those people are my local pickup people, and they get free shipping. They don't have to pay shipping, they pick it up, right? Um, I think it will also encourage that more for people to buy from more local sellers. Yeah. Let's see, how much is shipping around 2 to 3 pounds of fabric? Well, it's going to be that 720 because once you hit a pound, it's $7.20 for everything up to 5 pounds. So whether they buy 1 pound or 5 pounds, it's $7.20. That is now the new threshold 1 to 5 pound rate. And it is ground advantage shipping. That's the rate that Whatnot has negotiated. And it may not be exactly 720. That's what the article says, that it is going to be medium package, 1 to 5 pounds, what you'll usually pay 720. And I think the reason that they're saying what you'll usually pay is because if you go over those dimensions, if you go over 22 inches, it's going to add another charge. So you've got to keep your packaging within that dimension as well. So that's the beauty of fabric, is we can control, it's easy to control the dimensions of a package because, you can fold fabric a certain way or fold it flat. It's flexible. You don't have to have a box necessarily if you wrap in plastic and use nice quality um, poly mailers that don't tear easily. Yeah. So you have to stop at 5 pounds and start over again. So how do we get it to stop? That's what we're researching. That's the question of the day. Because right now, this is what we were researching that we would have to do, is to enter a custom shipping profile. And I'll show you the one I entered. So we called it 1 yard of quilting cotton, which weighs about 6 ounces. A yard of quilting cotton is somewhere between 4 to 6 ounces, depending on the brand. And you would want to use, obviously, probably the highest, weight to be safe. And then we incrementally add 6 ounces up to 12 items, which would max you out at, you know, about, if you're doing it by 6, so it maxes them out at about 12 and a half yards of fabric, right? Because we have 6 times 12 equals 72 ounces. So it's about 12 to 12 and a half yards of fabric, right? So that's the only way we could figure out that it would automatically unbundle it, is to say, that. But we were saying we feel like they need to add another setting where we can just say flat out, I'm selling, so that we can just say 1 yard of cotton, 6 ounces, max it out at 5. We can also have a setting that is a half yard of cotton for, let's say we put it at 3 ounces, max out at 5, and then no matter what yardage you sell, it maxes your whole package out at 5 no matter what they buy. I think we need that in our custom profiles so that it allows us to just automatically unbundle the package at 5 no matter what they buy. It's all adding up to that 5 pounds, right? So, because otherwise, I don't see how we can do that without selling everything under one custom profile, but then it all has to weigh the same and it forces us to sell, everything we sell at the same weight. So, in other words, instead of selling individual fat quarters, you have to force people to buy 4 at a time, or 2 half yards at a time, or 1 yard increments, you know. So everyone, or maybe you're a seller who wants to do half yard default, and so you have a custom profile that's a half yard and has incremental weight and has 24 items max. And then you sell everything in half yard increments, 2 fat quarters, 1 half yard. And then when you sell a yard, you're still selling it at half yard increments. But for them to get a continuous yard, they're forced to buy it in half yard increments. See what I'm saying? So, yeah, I want them to be able to add a setting in here that just says max it out at 5 pounds. So, yeah. Um, a good scale, just most of us use the ones you can buy on Amazon. They're pretty accurate. I haven't had problems with it, although we'll know better. Um, but I might invest in one that has more of a table, because right now those little scales that most of us use, if anything's overhanging, it's not as accurate. And so I almost feel like I need to have a scale that's like a little platform table thing, so that the whole item fits on there and you're pretty darn sure it's accurate. But look at reviews. And you may want to get one of them that it has a little cord and a little display that is separate from the actual unit, so that you can cover the whole unit and then see the weight separately. Has a separate little screen, that's, a little thing that's attached to the scale itself. Yeah. I sell vintage postcards in my buy it now in packs of 4. I don't feel comfortable charging 7.20. You wouldn't, because anything under a pound is still going to be the regular Ground Advantage rates under a pound. And in the article, the rates for that are here. That this is what they're saying. So small packages. So four postcards are still going to be under 4 ounces, right? So the base rate is 4.47. And actually on postcards, um, do 4 postcards still come in under 3 ounces? Because those you should still be able to use the the envelope shipping, because that still will be available. So the envelope shipping is still going to be here. It tells us that here. Are there any changes to media or first class mail letter? These updates do not affect these shipping services. However, there is a 0.4 cents annual increase effective July 12th. So instead of 74 cents, it's going to end up being 70. Sorry about that. I got a call, and for some reason on my iPhone now, when I get a call, if I try to dismiss it, it leaves the phone window open and then it mutes the show. It used to let me dismiss it and it wouldn't mute my show, but now it does. It's annoying. So I don't know, something in the settings are keeping that phone screen open and then it automatically mutes the sound. We're good now, right? Everybody can hear me? All right. So if you missed any of the stuff we were talking about, you can go rewatch the show, but here's the highlights. We still get the 5 free adjustments. The new threshold for being able to offer the reduced shipping banner or to get the reduced shipping banner is $7.20. So if you want the reduced shipping banner instead of 921, the threshold is 720 or less. You can still offer less. Okay. I was planning on doing a fill a box show before August. How do I set up the shipping for that? So you need to make sure your shipping settings are set for flat rate, 1 to 5 pounds, 5 pounds and over flat rate, and turn the buyer pays max to buyer pays all. And then you need to have a custom shipping profile. Let me show you the one I use in mine. So I have a custom shipping profile for the 3 sizes of flat rate boxes. If you know already, you're going to just use one of the flat rate boxes. Just pick whatever one you're going to use. And here is my custom profile for, where is it? Large flat rate box. Okay, so if you're gonna, so for example, if you're gonna do a large flat rate box, so here's the large flat rate box, one per box. So I have it set for item weight 4 pounds, one item per box. And what that means is that, and I have the weight at 4 pounds just because then there's no question that it's a flat rate box. Weight doesn't matter, right? So I have it at 4, just so that it doesn't hit that 5 pound threshold and get any confusion in that. All right. And then one item per box because you're selling the whole box. So use a profile, a custom shipping profile like this. You can call it whatever you want if you're using medium top loads, medium side loads, whatever. And then just make sure that you have in your show, in your actual show. So you're going to open that show and go in and edit the shipping settings and change the buyer pays max to buyer pays all and make sure you save it before you exit. But don't update it to all other shows. You just want it in that particular show. So you open it on your device, edit show, scroll down to where it's got the shipping settings, and just change it to, if you don't already have it at flat rate, change it to flat rate, and then buyer pays all. And then use a custom shipping profile like this. So I can show you in a show that I have. Let me just show you one. Okay, so I have a show like that scheduled for, because I'm doing a raid train. I think it's this Saturday. That's the fill a box raid train. Let me find it here. Yeah, it's this one right here. So here's my profile. Here's my schedule. So this Saturday, I'm doing that fill a box raid train, right? So if I open this show, all right, here's my listings for that show. A large flat rate box, a medium And I haven't filled my boxes yet, so I don't know for sure. This is what I have in there. So I have a large flat rate box full, a medium side load, and a medium top load. And that's what I have in there as what I'm going to sell. And honestly, in these shows, when we do fill a box, I don't put buy it now items in because it unbundles them. So I do still do giveaways, but I do stuff that can be mailed in an envelope and I'll just mail it separately if I decide to do giveaways in that fill a box show. All right. And then the shipping profile on this one. So, like the shipping profile on this large flat rate. So, I'm going to show you in my. So, if I go to edit it, see the shipping profile on this is um, the custom shipping profile is the large. Oh, and I have it at this other one that I use, RSS. Why did I use that one? I don't remember. Oh, yeah, RSS large. It's that same settings. 4 pounds, max bundle one, a box that's a 12 by 12 by 12. Okay. So that's my shipping profile for that item. Okay. Does that make sense? Um, I know the shipping is an important issue, so I don't want to switch subject. So at the end, can you talk about how to get involved in raid trains? Yeah, let's just address it because I think we pretty much, if you still have shipping questions, the main thing is I'm going to be asking about custom shipping profiles and can they add a setting that will just max out your order at 5 pounds, no matter what they buy, it just goes towards that 5 pounds and maxes it out. You're welcome, Jen. So, how do you get involved in raid trains? So, you come into shows like this and ask, and anyone in here that organizes raid trains, say that you organize raid trains. Who in here organizes raid trains? Anyone here in chat organize raid trains? Do I have any of our raid train people in here? Okay, so I'll just start name dropping. Okay, Cheap Girl Fabrics organizes raid trains. Fabric and Treasures organizes raid trains. Can someone start pinning them in chat? So Cheap Girl Fabrics, Fabric and Treasures. Um, who are some of the other fabric sellers that organize raid trains? Um, so it's Cheap Girl Fabrics, not Cheap Girl Finds. Andy sometimes organizes raid trains. Um, like it Swipe It organizes raid trains. Okay, so those are some of the fabric sellers that organize raid trains. So message them. Yeah, Lisa Works does some. Red Rock Creations does some. Fabric Revival. There you go. So take screenshots of all those people. Yeah, Deb Jam organizes raid trains. Um, so reach out to those sellers and ask if you can, get involved in some raid trains. The other way is you just go to the For You page and look at the raid train shows. And most of the time, the thumbnail will say right on it who organized the raid train. So, for example, let's see. Do I have one on here that says right on the thumbnail? All right, so here's one that's on my schedule further out. This one's in September. This Practical Magic raid train that I'm going to be in says hosted by Lisa Works and Stasa. So a lot of times the thumbnail will say right on it who hosts organize that raid train, and you can just reach out to that seller and ask if you can get involved in some raid trains. And then if it doesn't say in the thumbnail, you can go into the shows and it usually will say it right in the show notes and have like a a schedule of who's doing that raid train. Um, oh yeah, because here's another one that is hosted by Fabric and Treasures. It says right on the thumbnail. Okay, so that's how. So then just reach out to those people. And I would recommend um, a couple of things about raid trains. Don't ask to get involved into a raid train until you know how to run a show and that you feel comfortable that you would be able to do a 30-minute to an hour show and be able to sell things quickly and not derail the train. So make sure that you feel comfortable doing a faster paced show and that you're going to be able to keep your wits about you, because there's nothing worse than being the seller on a raid train who derails the train. Everybody leaves because you don't have your crap together, if you know what I mean. So before you ask to be involved, make sure that you feel comfortable, that you know how everything works, and that you would be able to do a faster paced show, because a typical raid train is, well, some of them are even like 10 minutes, but in the fabric category, most of them are 30 minutes to an hour. And you've got to have a nice curated show, stay organized, and be able to run a quick, fast paced show and raid on time and all of that stuff. So make sure you're comfortable doing that before you ask to participate. And then the other thing is, if you do ask to participate, I know life happens, but don't be the flaky kind of person who just gets nervous and then says, I can't do this raid train, because you'll never be asked again. You've got to be able to do it, show up, be on time, do the raid train, raid on time, dot, 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 check off all those boxes. And I'm just being blunt about that because, you know, the first time you are flaky with a raid train, you're never going to be asked again. So don't be the kind of person who, if you commit to do it, you're going to show up, because that's how raid trains work. If someone just bows out at the last second, then whoever hosted it has to, do a show in your place, because you didn't show up to do it, because you can't derail the train and not have someone, to raid into on every time slot. So yeah, that's what I would say about raid trains. Um, yeah. And the raid trains are great for helping you get found, helping you get more followers. Um, really it's all about exposure. It gets you a lot more exposure. Yeah. And also be supportive. Go into the other shows, make comments, give hearts, share shows, help moderate, etc. All those things, yeah. You know, and also if you happen to have a show, some raid trains will tell you flat out you're not allowed to have another show scheduled during that raid train. So if that's the case, follow that rule. And if they don't specify that, if you have another show that day, it's always a good idea to raid into the raid train that you're part of, to be supportive and yeah, keep the algorithms and the momentum going and all that stuff. So, but some raid trains, they'll say, you're not, if you want to be part of this raid train, you're not allowed to have a show during the raid train, even if it's not your time slot. And at the very least, don't promote that you have another show during that to take customers away from the raid train. That makes sense, right? Okay. But usually are allowed to have people bookmark your upcoming shows outside of the raid train day times. Okay. All right. Any other questions? I do need to get going, and hopefully we can get an answer to those custom shipping profiles and see if we can get that more narrowed down, because I feel like otherwise it forces us to sell, you know, in weird ways. It forces us to have to do certain items that's do everything at the same weight, and that's frustrating. Because that will mean a lot more time and preparation to try and get shows put together. Plus, it discourages us from having buy it now items because we wouldn't be able to control, what people buy. So, yeah, that's frustrating. All right, let's go find someone to raid. Thanks everybody for being here. And again, if you want to rewatch this, just go to my YouTube, which is in the show notes. It's Draz on Whatnot. And let me go see who's out there live that we can raid into. And I'll ask that question today and hopefully get an answer as soon as possible. Let's go raid into. Oh, and if you don't mind, give me a little boost by going and bookmarking my shows. Bookmarks do help. Let's go right into. Let's go right into what goes around. She was on here a little bit earlier, so we'll go right into her. And thank you so much, everybody. Going over to what goes around. All right. Have a great day. Thanks, everyone.